welcome to the SBP Podcast Mobile Filmmaking. You're listening to episode 98, and I'm your host, Susie Botello. 3, 2, 1. FilmConvert and Filmic Pro bring Hollywood color science to your iPhone. This is the focus of the conversation that we're going to have with one of the sponsors of the International Mobile Film Festival, FilmConvert, and John Parker, actually, who is going to be speaking for FilmConvert, and their partnership with Filmic Pro, who will be represented by Eliot Fitzroy. Now, we're going to be speaking with them quite in detail about what this means for mobile filmmaking. As you know or may know, Filmic Pro is an app that has been used by Hollywood filmmakers. I don't even need to tell you their names, but I will. Steven Soderbergh, to create some pretty cool feature films. But also, FilmConvert is a software company that creates film grain and color grading effects for different filmmakers, not just mobile filmmakers. They've been our sponsor for the International Mobile Film Festival since 2017. And we're really grateful for them. They were in one of our John actually was in one of our podcasts. I forgot which number it was, but I do mention it during the podcast. If you want to go back and listen to part of who John Parker is and some details about FilmConvert. But this particular podcast is pretty cool because what it's going to do is explain in detail this partnership that FilmConvert and Filmic Pro have gone into, which is using the FilmConvert's software called Cinematch to help you with your films when you're shooting with either one or several different cameras or different phones, even for multi-camera shoots. But I'll let them explain the details to that. I do want to say that I want to congratulate the filmmakers that won the International Mobile Film Festival. Let me just rattle off the winners really quick. The winner of the Mobile Feature Film Competition is Jennifer Zhang with her film Sharon. The winners of the Short Film Competition, first prize went to Arthur McCabe for War Is Not a Game. He is in Russia. The second prize went to Razi Udin, A Train to Home, which was also featured as a community stories film. He is in Pakistan. And Ben Treston took third prize with his film Shifted, and he's in the UK. Jennifer and her film Sharon, Jennifer Zhang, she's in LA. So I want to say congratulations again to all of you. We hope to see you again for the 2022 edition of the International Mobile Film Festival, which, by the way, opened submissions on June 19th of this year. So you can get started, you can have some fun during the summer and start making your next films for the International Mobile Film Festival. You can go to our website and find out details and the deadlines for each competition, but they usually happen close to the end of the year between October and November of this year. So if you guys are all ready to listen to John Parker and Eliot Fitzroy, let's go talk to them now. Hey guys, I promised you that I had two wonderful guests, and here they are. I've got FilmConvert and I've got Filmic Pro right here for you. So representing each one of these is John Parker and Eliot Fitzroy. Eliot is in Australia and John is in New Zealand. And wherever you are, get ready because we're going to go for a journey into the partnership that Filmic Pro and FilmConvert have taken together for your benefit so that you can make amazing films and tell wonderful stories. So let's start with you, John. Say hello.
Hi, everybody. Thanks very much for having us on the podcast. We're thrilled to be here. We're really excited to be a sponsor of the Mobile Film Festival for many years now. And we've been keeping our tabs on the mobile filmmaking space for years and working over the years with Filmic Pro. And we finally have some really big announcements when a product that we think is really going to change the way that mobile filmmakers approach both their cinematography and their post-production. That's going to help them take their films to the next level.
Hey, Eliot, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit here really quick?
Thanks, Susie. My name's Eliot. I'm the product manager for Filmic Pro, and I'm also a filmmaker. And I'm as excited as John is to talk about some of the cool new stuff that will, I think, be a huge benefit to independent filmmakers shooting on mobile.
Well, let's talk about this for a second. Now, Eliot, Filmic Pro has been around for many years. You are one of our friends as pioneers. We've sort of grown up together, right?
Yeah, that's right. 10 years now, Filmic Pro's been on the App Store and slightly less on the Google Play Store. But yeah, it's great to be on the show with you.
You guys, I kind of forgot about that because you guys have just been moving along so rapidly, with both the iOS and the Android formats. But you guys went Android, was it 2015 or 2016 or something like that?
Yeah, that sounds about right. I wasn't with the company then, and I wasn't shooting Android, so I can't quite remember the first year that went on the market, but that sounds about right.
Yeah, and I think it was people were begging for it for a long time, and it was great when that came along as well. Although I think that a lot of the Hollywood style, more well-known filmmakers are using iPhones. Because, Apple does have that creative, I don't know what to call it, lean, that they have. When I tell people, John, you're going to kill me for this probably, but because I think you work also out of PCs, right?
Yeah, we're across both the FilmConvert and Cinematch, both Mac and Windows.
Yeah. Well, I used to hang out at the Apple store playing with their toys and things like that all the time. And people would, say, I don't know if I want to get a PC or an Apple or a Mac. And I would say, well, let me ask you, what is your passion? Is your passion leaning towards creativity or more on the, business administration part? And they're like, oh, that's a good question. They'd say, more towards creative. And I'd say, oh, then you got to get an Apple. You got to get a Mac. You can still do the business stuff with it, but you're going to want the Mac because that's, unless you're gaming, creating games, I should say. So anyways, I don't mean to go all out there on that. But go ahead, John, and explain to our listeners, guys, this is the cool thing about having these guys together. You guys are partnering up. And I want you to share with our listeners why you're partnering up and what they're going to be able to get out of that.
Sure. So, FilmConvert, for those who don't know, we make tools for filmmakers, specifically editors and color graders. So, the post-production stage of your process, after you've shot your film, you bring it into whether it's Final Cut Pro or Adobe Premiere Pro or DaVinci Resolve. And when you're going to color grade your film, we make tools to help that process much faster and easier. So FilmConvert will take your camera footage from just about any camera you can name and make it look like it was shot on celluloid film, like Kodak, Fujifilm, for a really kind of classic cinematic film look. And we've been around for 10 years. We've been doing this with a whole range of cameras. You kind of from Sony, Blackmagic, Canon, basically all the popular from high-end digital cinema cameras like the Arri and the Reds, all the way down to your mirrorless cameras, DSLRs, and even GoPros and drones we now support. And we've been keeping an eye on the mobile filmmaking space because we've seen that this is obviously a huge area of growth. More and more people are entering the realm wanting to tell stories. And smartphones really enable a far more intimate and flexible and just unorthodox mode of filmmaking. It's not, there's things you can do with a smartphone that you just can't do even with a small mirrorless camera. You can't tape it to the ceiling, or you can't kind of smuggle it into a mall to get shots like that. So we always knew that the smartphone filmmaking space was a great place. We wanted to be able to provide our tools for those filmmakers as well. And what we've been waiting for and what's happening now is that the technical capabilities of the phones are catching up with the creative potential of the filmmakers. So we reached out to Filmic Pro back in 2017 to start because we saw, hey, here's a professional cinematography app now. You don't have to rely on the built-in camera app that gives you no controls. This was a tool designed for filmmakers. So we reached out to Filmic Pro and said, hey, we want to get exposure. We want to kind of find out what's the world of mobile filmmaking like. And we've met up with the team several times. We've had a whole bunch of discussions, talked about kind of technical issues. And we've added support for the iPhone XS and XR and the iPhone 7 and particular with profile support for Filmic Pro's log modes and their flat and their standard camera modes. This is what we always recommend any filmmaker. If you're shooting on mobile phone, use Filmic Pro. It's hands down the best cinematography app out there for mobile. It gives you all the professional control you need to really take creative intent, author control over your images. So that was the beginning of our relationship. With what we've come up with recently is what we think is basically a next development in the stage in mobile color grading, which is a tool that will take your iPhone footage and make it look like it was shot on a Hollywood cinema camera in terms of the color reproduction and the tone, the kind of contrast curve you get from high-end digital cinema cameras like the Arri or the Reds, Heliums and Geminis, the ones which are the Marvel movies are shot on and every Oscar winner. We've developed technology which will allow you to emulate the look of those cameras on your mobile phone footage using Filmic Pro's Log V3.
So you can basically use the same camera that was used for, say, shooting Lord of the Rings. Mm-hmm. To shoot any film that you want that you used that you have an iPhone 12 for, right?
That's basically the promise. And Eliot's actually he took the preview version of the software out and did some camera tests for himself. And maybe you want to talk a little bit, Eliot, about the results that you were getting.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we're talking about Cinematch, which is just insanely cool, I think it's mainly due to 10-bit video with the 12 series, which is why this supports for the 12 series iPhones only, because they support Log V3, which is a really nice log profile in 10-bit that has beautiful gradation, huge number of colors, and really, really nice dynamic range. So Cinematch lets you do two things which are incredibly exciting. The first is exactly what John's been alluding to. You can take your iPhone 12 footage and say, I want to match it to Blackmagic's film or Arri log or another log profile, and then you can quickly normalize it so it looks great in Rec 709, and you have instantly turned your iPhone into a seriously viable B camera that you could drop in a production with any other camera, whether it's from Arri, Red, Sony, Fujifilm, and so on. That's
Eliot.
Yeah.
Really quick, what is the log format?
So log just stands for logarithmic, and when you look at it, it's not just the milky white flat image with no color in it. It's the curve that is applied to video that's going to give you the greatest dynamic range and the best starting point in post when you want to grade that and normalize it. So it's really designed, especially in Filmic Pro's case, to protect your highlights and shift your shadow detail towards the mid so that we encode that and we preserve that dynamic range. And really it's designed to give filmmakers and especially colorists the most flexibility in post to work with that footage instead of delivering a hyper-saturated and very contrasty image out of the camera.
Is that a little bit in comparison to what for photographers, the raw format?
Yes and no.
For post-processing or anything like that?
I mean, you shoot RAW because you want as much detail off the sensor as possible. Log is not a RAW format on mobile. On iPhone, it's still H.264 HEVC compressed video, so you can't say it's the equivalent to a RAW format, but the idea is the same.
I'm trying to make it, exactly, and that's what I'm trying to do so that for some of our listeners who are completely lost on what that means, to have something to lean on to give them a perspective.
Yeah, really, we are trying to give them the most information possible to work with in post so that gives them the most freedom possible to arrive at the look that they need for their film.
Yeah, more control.
That's right.
So go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just thought for some listeners who are just used to shooting on their native cameras, they might want to know exactly what that is.
Sure. So the first thing we were just talking about is camera matching. You can quickly drop the iPhone into any pro production and in a few clicks with Cinematch, convert Filmic's log profile to the log profile of another camera, and from there you can quickly normalize it to Rec 709 or color grade it further. But the other thing that really blew me away with Cinematch is because I personally don't have a Red camera and I don't have an Arri or anything fancy. So the whole multicam thing is great for professional crews. But for me, it's sort of academic. It is cool, but not something I could do. But the other thing you can do with Cinematch is you can take your iPhone footage and you can say, well, actually, I'd be really interested to see what Arri's color science or Red's color science or Fujifilm's would look like on my iPhone footage. So you can, instead of just matching it to another camera in a production, actually change your Filmic Log V footage so that it looks like log out of an Arri Cinema camera or a Blackmagic. And then beyond that, you can take the LUTs that are made for those sort of profiles, for Blackmagic, for example, and you can instantly start using them with your smartphone or iPhone 12 series footage, which is really amazing and opens up all sorts of creative possibilities.
We're going to share a link to a video that talks about that so our listeners can actually see it. About the process that you were just explaining. But that's really, really exciting. John, how do you, just from taking to the process that that Eliot was just talking about, just kind of continue on that process from the FilmConvert side?
So when you bring your log footage that you shot with Filmic Log Pro and the Log V3 into your edit, you'll see a kind of a very low contrast kind of image, and it looks that way because there's all this, basically the dynamic range potential is ready to be used by the colorist to kind of bring their image to life. And the first thing you can do with Cinematch is you'll add it onto as an effect on the clip in your timeline, and you tell the plugin what you shot in. So you'll nominate, I shot on the iPhone 12 Filmic Pro Log V3. And then you simply, there's a target. You say, what do I want my footage to look like? Do I want to emulate Arri Log C? Or if you are matching to another A cam in your production, you'll choose whatever that target is. The conversion will happen in real time. You'll be able to scrub back and forth on your clips. You'll see the color change. And from there, you can drop on whatever other color grade you like. If there's a show LUT that you've developed for your show that's designed for a particular camera, you can drop that onto your footage, and it'll behave exactly as though you'd shot on that camera, on that camera instead of your iPhone. So it really unlocks the creative potential of the iPhone enormously. You're not baked into this kind of very kind of smartphone, traditional, very hyper-saturated, very kind of blown out kind of look that phones maybe traditionally people think of images from phones, and they think of very kind of imagine beach scenes where the skies are just completely blown out and very white. This allows you to use film-like color grading curves to get much more cinematic images out of your mobile phone footage. And we really think there's kind of two real use cases for this. There's if you're solely a mobile filmmaker, so you're shooting all your projects on your phone, then this is a great way of basically giving your phone a color science upgrade. You're utilizing this Hollywood color science, which is developed by big companies and is universally recognized for producing beautiful images. And you can take that and apply that to your footage, and just give your films higher production quality. It'll look like $1 million. The second use case is for where if you're shooting a documentary or corporate video or things where you might have an A cam, say a Canon C300 or a Blackmagic Pocket 4K, and that'll be your A cam. You're shooting your kind of interviews, all your kind of main footage on that. If you're a producer, or if you have an assistant camera person or somebody on hand who has an iPhone, you can send that person out with their phone and say, go get some interesting B-roll, go get an extra angle for this shot, or go something amazing happens in the background and the main camera person can't react. But if you have your phone, you can shoot that and incorporate that footage into your main timeline completely seamlessly. It'll look like it belongs there as part of the rest of the film. It won't look like a smartphone image. It'll just look like it was shot on your principal A cam. So this adds, if you've ever edited films, editors love options. They love coverage. They like having extra cutaways. The more material you can give them, the better they can kind of craft their story. So this is enabling mobile filmmakers, or people who have an iPhone in their pocket. You can add that second camera or a third camera angle to really enhance the value of your productions, and still know that visually that those shots are going to merge in seamlessly to the rest of your film.
Well, like for B-roll, for example, when you have, now let's think internationally, where you have different people shooting with Androids and iPhones and what have you in different countries and things like that. And when you go into editing, you've got to deal with the differences in the look for all of these different phones, because there's a difference between the look of an Android, the difference between an iPhone, and even different, the iPhone 6 compared to the iPhone 10 or the 12 or whatever, right? And all those things. So you can bring them into Cinematch and FilmConvert, and you can make these sort of match each other a little more seamlessly to bring more of a general consistent look to your film. Am I correct?
That's exactly right. Yep, that's the potential. What we have to do is our process of profiling and creating these camera profiles. It's customized to each sensor. Like you said, the iPhone 6 does have a different color reproduction than the iPhone 12, and it's not just in software. It's because the capabilities of that sensor are different. So for every time we profile a phone, we actually need to get our hands on the phone. We shoot it in our proprietary test suite. We capture all the data, and that's what allows us to create these transforms. So for the iPhone 12, the iPhone 12 profile and the Filmic Log V3 profile is tailored to that specific phone. What we'd like to do is continue, if we see that there's a lot of uptake and there's more mobile filmmakers who are willing to do this, we can add more support for phones. We can add the Android devices, the Samsungs, any others that are out there. I think the good thing about the Filmic Log V3 is that with the log, again, you're capturing more data, you're getting more dynamic range, which just gives you more flexibility in post to be able to grade and match those images. So it's certainly definitely all possible and on the roadmap for us.
So this is a call out to our listeners who are maybe using some Android phones to get in touch with John, for sure. I mean, we've got, in our film festival, we've got filmmakers that are using any phone. I mean, there are some that I have to go and look up sometimes because they're not just an Android phone that I can even recognize from the name, and I have to make sure it's a mobile phone. But that's the beauty in all this, in a documentary, you expect that. But let's talk about people collaborating together, and they're all using Filmic Pro, whether they're using it on a 6S or a 12. Eliot, is that a possibility to do that? Is that something that you advise people? I mean, I imagine you would, to use Filmic Pro and then bring it in and to get something more that looks a little more seamless, that, aesthetically matches each other, even if it's not perfect, that it'll help with the storyline, right? So that people aren't interrupted going, well, what's going on there? What's with that? That it looks too different.
Yes, certainly. I mean, for any production that's being shot on multiple cameras, you want them to be part of the same world. Shooting log is one way to do that because you have a much more neutral starting point to build your finished look. So that can be done across the iPhone 6S and up with Filmic Log V2 and Log V3 on the 12 series devices. But if you're wanting to unify those cameras using Cinematch or FilmConvert Nitrate, that's where you need the specific camera profiles that John was just talking about, because that is a true science. I've been into the FilmConvert office and got a peek at their lab, and it really is amazing how they create those profiles. I wish I could say I understood everything that went into it, but it's too complex for me. But it's really amazing what they're able to do when it comes to profiling one of those cameras so that you get that incredible results either with FilmConvert Nitrate or with Cinematch. I'm not sure if John can go into any more detail or if you'd be interested in what they go through to profile a camera, but I at least find it really fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well then, if you find it fascinating, I'm sure we've got some listeners out there that would love to hear a little bit about that. John?
Yeah, so it's a proprietary process we developed. There's basically nobody else in the world who has the kind of camera library of data that we have at this point. We've been doing this for 10 years. We started out by the first camera we profiled was the Canon 5D Mark II back, and that was kind of the start of the DSLR revolution when independent filmmakers suddenly had these tools they could make really kind of beautiful cinematic images with. So we've kind of extended and developed. We have a whole range of charts. Color charts are specially formulated, specially printed pieces of material that reflect very consistent known color values under lights. So we bring each camera in, we shoot these charts under set lighting conditions, and we do that for every single camera so that we know the Canon 5D Mark II reproduces this hue of red at this particular way every single time. And we know how the iPhone 12 reproduces that exact same color. So that we can create this very accurate transform between those two reds so that when the iPhone sees that color red in the real world, we know, if you wanted to transform that, this is how that color would be reproduced. There's a whole bunch more math behind it, which is far beyond me. But what the results are that you can actually really accurately transform colors between cameras to emulate the look and the characteristic of that camera system very accurately.
How does the difference between night and day affect this?
It really comes down to, again, all of the color grading in the world is never going to save your footage if it wasn't shot well to begin with. And this is obviously where tools like Filmic Pro really help, because they give you the ability to kind of control and author your images. You need to expose properly. You need to have enough light on your subject that things aren't drowning in darkness. You need to expose for the conditions, and you need to be able to set a correct white balance and lock that in. So if it's daylight, make sure that you've taken a white card, that you're white balancing your footage, and then, or white balancing your camera for the shot, and then locking that in so it doesn't change. These are we take that into account when we profile the cameras. We know what the white balance of the scene and the colors that we're shooting are. So as long as you follow best shooting practices, then Cinematch and FilmConvert are going to work really well to transform your look. And that applies equally day or night. Those are the principles of cinematography are the same. You've got to expose for your subject and white balance for your lighting conditions. If you get those two things right, then you're going to be able to do really great things with your footage.
Yeah, I remember one of the things that people forget, especially as the night is coming in, or when you move from inside to outside, because you get excited over what you're filming, is making sure that you do the color, the white balance all over again with each condition. Otherwise, you get something really blue, and you're going, "What happened? What's going on here? We're in Avatar all of a sudden, right?"
Yeah, that's when you give your colorist a headache.
Yeah. John, you guys do some really incredible things from what I've heard with Filmic Pro in handling low light situations, especially with your more recent updates. Can you talk just a little bit about that?
Sure, yeah. The low light the sensor in the iPhone 12, for starts, they're now recording 10-bit, which is basically a 25% increase in the data they're collecting, which makes a huge amount of difference to the color depth that's being captured, and therefore what you can do with the footage. The sensor itself is larger, I believe, Eliot. So I'm not sure about that, but it certainly performs better.
On the 12 Pro Max only, you're getting a much larger sensor size, which helps with that low light performance.
Yeah. So basically, the larger sensor lets in more light. The photo sites are larger. It allows better low light performance. There's also been a bunch of software enhancements. I know Apple's kind of constantly working on this to improve the way their cameras kind of perform. So there's some AI processing going on there as well to help kind of clean that up. The technology is improving all the time, and we think this is the moment where the technology is really kind of catching up and becoming on par with more expensive traditional camera systems, which is the really exciting thing for mobile filmmakers.
Yeah, I think one of the benefits for mobile filmmaking is the fact that you carry less when you're out there. And, if you have to carry a light set everywhere you go to start with, that kind of gets in the way. It almost defeats the purpose of mobile filmmaking, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it slows you down. You kind of lose the benefits of being kind of flexible and when you're doing those things. And also, I think it really also unlocks the type of projects that we're going to see people making for years or prior to 2000. If you wanted to shoot a feature film, even a low budget indie feature film, you're talking $250,000 and a grip truck and 30 crew members in order to make this picture happen. That can shrink down to a 2 or 3 person crew, and your image quality is going to look as good as you can get with a much more expensive and much more heavyweight crew, which means that we're going to see more people being able to make films, different types of stories. It's the beginning of a really exciting period for cinema, I think.
Yeah, well, in production, time is money, and just having to stand around and wait for the lights to cool down before you can even remove the lights and put them away so you can go to your next location is time consuming, just all in itself, even if it's just 3 lights, right?
Yeah, definitely. I worked as a grip swing when I first moved to New York City after I finished university, and I worked on some film sets there. And yes, 90% of it was sitting around waiting for them to call cut, and then all hell breaking loose, and everybody have to move 30 tons of gear up 6 flights of stairs for the next setup. After that, I decided to go into post-production.
And Susie, you had Mark and Jed on your show who starred in Blue Moon that was shot in Motueka in New Zealand, where I was living. And they were able to film that. I think they did it in 5 nights from 11 p.m. till 5 a.m. over 5 nights when the gas station was closed. I mean, you can't do that with a traditional camera system. And they had a feature in under a week. It's pretty amazing what it makes possible for those sort of crews who can't get the big budgets that they need to tell unique, interesting stories.
And that's part of, my passion is with the storytelling part. And that's one of the drivers for mobile filmmaking for me is the fact that now you have, if you really want to take the time to learn all these things, you can really tell some really great stories and you have that power. And the thing is that I've worked with independent filmmakers for the most part, and they've said, I don't ever want to work in a Hollywood setting because for this reason and for that reason. And a lot of the reasons that they usually give is because they don't have the control, of their production like they do in independent filmmaking. And a lot of that has to do sometimes with the budget. So who's financing your film and how much control they have over your film really comes down to you controlling your story, the story that you're telling, and now using Filmic Pro, FilmConvert, your whatever smartphone you have will most likely work. And having that control gives the actual filmmaker, who sometimes, a lot of times, it's the screenwriter as well, right? So that's a big, huge benefit. And I think, Steph Harris from Blue Moon has been really excited about all the stories that he wants to make now because, he's a cop, you guys. But he's also a really good writer. It's one of the reasons why Jed and Mark got involved with Blue Moon. It was, the dialogue and the character development and everything in the way that was created, and they wanted to be a part of it. And they're all in on mobile filmmaking now because of that. Eliot, are you making films yourself?
I wish I was making more films. The only films I make right now are the tutorials for the Filmic Pro channel, which still takes up a lot of time. It is filmmaking.
Yeah.
And that's, where I put my filmmaking efforts. But I'd like to get back to narrative filmmaking. I've made some terrible films over the years and at film school. You probably wouldn't want to see any of them. When it comes to B-grade horror and things like that, I love it.
Oh, that's awesome. That's pretty awesome. What about you, John?
Yeah, I started out I went to film school and then I started out in documentaries. So I edited, worked for a regional TV station in New Zealand, putting together little local news stories. And I worked on, when I moved to New York, I worked on a couple of documentaries with a filmmaker named Angelo Giuliano, which called Heart of Steel and The Woman Who Wasn't There, which ended up at Tribeca. And so, my heart has always been in kind of editing and the post-production. And on the writing side as well, I did a master's in script writing. So I've written feature film scripts and short films in my time. So I like either end of the filmmaking process. The one part I don't have any interest in is, funnily enough, the shooting. I'll leave that to the people with the kind of the talent, visuals and things like that. As far as when I write a scene on paper and I can see it in my head, that's as far as I'm concerned, the film's done at that stage. I don't even care if it gets made.
You're funny. Eliot, what brought you to the Filmic Pro world, actually?
Well, it was 2011. I think I was in my second year of film school. And the buzz on campus was that the film school had managed to purchase one Red Scarlet camera with a set of prime lenses. And there are about 300 students all trying to book out that same camera. So it didn't take long to realize that I'm never going to get to shoot on a Red, and all the other cameras are booked out. But I had an iPhone 5S, and then I found that app Filmic Pro in the App Store while I was there, and I started playing with it. And I was amazed that I had a 1080p camera with bit rates that were as high as the Canon 7Ds that, everyone else was using at film school. Plus, it didn't take 20 minutes for every scene change with the Red Scarlet when I was lucky enough to get it. And it was just a revelation to me that you could get through your film so quickly, move so quickly. And of course, there's the Robert Rodriguez saying about moving at the speed of thought. That's what filmmakers and creatives generally like to do. And this was the first time in the video sphere, at least, that I was able to move as quickly as I could think of things. So yeah, it just opened up filmmaking to me, and I just loved how accessible it was, how it wasn't elitist, because nearly everyone I knew at film school, they had a phone. So lots of us just started shooting on that because we didn't have any chance of booking out the Red Scarlet for at least a year. So that's how I got into mobile filmmaking. And for my graduating thesis and research project, I wanted to see if you could make a feature film from start to finish only on mobile. So even back then, I had an old iPad, an old iPhone, and I made a feature-length production just using those two devices, from scripting, storyboarding, to shooting, and to editing it using iMovie even back then. But it was possible, and it's only gone from strength to strength since then, and continues to rapidly evolve. And every year we get new exciting tools on those devices that makes them even more powerful.
And that's the exciting thing. I think for the longest time, being a low budget or being an independent filmmaker meant compromises. I mean, you're always going to be missing out on something. Now with the new tools, between the iPhone, Filmic Pro, and FilmConvert and Cinematch, we're removing those compromises on image quality. You can produce professional cinema quality images with these tools that you have and retain all the benefits of being able to work that quickly and flexibly. We think it's just thrilling and a really exciting time to be a filmmaker. And if you've ever wanted to make a film, there's literally no better time than right now to do it.
And that's, how this benefits people who love to watch films is that there are more stories, more films out there to be seen. Aside from, YouTube videos that normally are known for, how-to videos and cats, right, and things like that, but just little things. But there is more content out there that is a little more, not always narrative, but it feeds the brain better than a cheeseburger. A little more. It's more like has more nutrients than that. I don't know if now, John, you gave out the prices for this year's filmmakers. And one of them was Jennifer Zhang for her feature film, Sharon.
Mm-hmm.
And the amazing thing is that she shot that film during the lockdown. She's in LA, and she shot that by herself. But she also edited that entire feature-length movie. I think it was like an hour and 17 or an hour and 13. She edited the whole thing on her phone, on the same phone that she used to shoot it.
That's incredible.
I don't know of anybody else that has done that. So I wanted to get your input on that.
Well, we're also Filmic Pro knows as well, but LumaFusion is kind of the equivalent of Filmic Pro for the editing side of your productions. The things they're doing on the iPad now, you can edit multi-track video in full native 4K, I think, and be able to kind of you can complete your entire feature film post-process fully mobile now, which is just astonishing. And we're really
definitely
people asking,
and it also works on the phone, right?
Are they iPad only?
Or it absolutely does.
Yeah.
All right. I haven't tried
I
that
wonder
out.
if anybody's edited their feature film on an actual phone, not on an iPad, but on the actual phone, because I have never run across or come across someone that has done that 100%, like, shooting and editing all on the phone.
We said
Yeah.
again, part of the reason why we started reaching out
The feature.
a couple of years ago was that people started asking us, can you bring out a version of FilmConvert for the phone and for the phone or for the iPad? And we were why would anyone want to do that when you have a perfectly good laptop here? And then we started looking more into it. We kind of explored the workflows. We saw the tools, and again, it's about the speeds, the ability to, and I think editing on touch devices is quite a different experience than editing with a mouse and keyboard as well. It feels more kind of intuitive, where they're being able to kind of swipe and scroll and pause and zoom in. Those gestures that are, but may kind of yield a different type of editing. I'd be really curious to kind of see that.
It's nerve-wracking. It's nerve-wracking. I mean, because if you swipe a little too much here or pinch a little too much there on the smaller screen, like it is on a phone, when you're dealing with a feature-length movie, that's... I just had not met anyone that has done that for a feature-length film. And so, she didn't realize we were on Clubhouse having this conversation, and we were telling her, we don't know of anybody else that's done that. You're crazy, Jennifer. But she didn't know either. She was just doing it to get it done. She meticulously edited that whole thing. That's just amazing. And again, it's one of the things. So when you're talking about democratizing this whole filmmaking thing, not everybody has an iPad and a phone. Like for me, for example, I'd love to have an iPad, but I've got a laptop and I've got a phone. And for me, the iPad is the middle child, right? And so, I'd love to have one, but right now I'm setting my priorities to what I have to use most of the time. But there are people who only have a phone, and that's all they have. And so they've got to work with just a phone. And I'd really love for them to be able to not have a limitation to, the kinds of movies that they can make on their phone, not just shooting it, but also editing. And FilmConvert, hey, why not, right?
That's the kind of the three pillars that you need. You've got Filmic Pro for your shooting and your cinematography. You've got LumiFusion or your mobile editing solution, and then FilmConvert and Cinematch for your color grading. And that's all you need. I think I can see where Apple is going with its kind of ecosystem of devices and again, the incredible power in the new M1 silicon chips that they're packing in there, that eventually the iPad might just be kind of the brains of your device. And you take that with you, it slips into your bag, or if you're out shooting, you transfer your footage to your iPad, knock up a quick rough edit. When you get back to your desk or your office, you simply drop it on the desk. It syncs up to your monitor, your keyboard or mouse are all kind of there, and you're ready to continue finishing on with your edit. It'll be that kind of seamless. You'll have a single device, but it'll kind of transform contexts depending on where you are. So I think in another 3-4 years, that's where things are heading. And again, it's just fantastically exciting to be a filmmaker and have these devices at your disposal to work the way you want to.
Yeah, I don't need a notepad anymore.
Nope.
I don't need, what were those in college? The little recorders, the digital recorders.
Yeah, that's
don't need that.
Little voice, right? Yeah.
Right. You don't need that. Don't need a separate camera. I used to always have to carry my little digital camera around all over the place as well. Don't need that anymore. So you start to sort of put away things that you don't need anymore. So we don't need as much furniture in our homes to keep all those things anymore either. So we're doing great. And it's most of it thanks to the creativity and the ingenuity from not just Apple, but also all the manufacturers out there. Because if there was no competition between Apple and Samsung and Pixel or whatever, they wouldn't have that much of an incentive, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Apple aren't always first to get to market with new things like ultra-wide lenses or 10-bit video. You'll often find those more interesting things appear on the Android side first, and then 12 months or 9 months later at the September event, they arrive on the Apple platform. And I always wonder, would they have come this year if Samsung or another company hadn't brought it out?
Yeah, one of the things for the film festival back in 2009 when I was conceptualizing the whole thing, because it was a competition, and I figured that by creating the competition that you would have people challenging themselves to see how far they could go so that they could win, right? And I had people saying, well, why don't you just have iPhones because of iPods and things like that? Why don't you just do this? Why don't you include all mobile devices and all these things? And I was like, I just want to stick to the smartphones, because for me, that's what I saw where the future was on the phone. But I said, but the other thing is that I don't want it to have one brand. I want all the manufacturers of different phones to realize that this film festival is saying to the filmmakers and challenging them to make movies not for a digital screen, but for the big screen, for the theater, for the cinema, because that brings that whole challenge to a different level. And by doing that, I was hoping that they would do kind of like where they are today, where they're working on the lenses and they're working on the, on everything to do that, to bring these movies and films to the Hollywood big screen, right? And that quality.
I think Apple definitely sees that. I mean, you've seen their at all of their phone announcements of the past, they're hiring Oscar winners to shoot their videos. They're really playing up the filmmaking aspect of what you can do with these films. So I think it's kind of a call and response between Apple and the filmmaking community. Apple's putting this functionality into the phones. Now it's up to the artists to go ahead and make something with it, and then say to Apple, right, we need this next. We need to kind of you to push your devices even further and give us more. So I think, that's at this point, the ball is in the filmmaker's court to take the iPhone 12 and make an Oscar-winning film with it.
Yeah, I grew up in Spain. My mom is from Spain, so I grew up in Spain, and my father was American. So I got to hear from both sides, the people in other countries, the dream of making movies, Hollywood movies, right? Mm-hmm. It is a real dream that people, Conrad Mess, we were talking about Conrad Mess, his story was that he was growing up in Spain, watching movies, and he wanted to be a Hollywood director, and like him are so many. Where we here in the U.S. and in California, it's in our own backyard, so we don't think of it like that. It's still a dream for many people, but for people from other countries, back in that day, it was a big dream, and I'm sure Eliot and John, that you guys come across people that contact you like they do to me and say, my biggest dream is to make a movie and to be able to, go to LA, and to be acknowledged as a filmmaker and all those things. That's a big deal. And I think people like Apple and you guys and even myself, that's what we're really trying to do, is to help people realize the dream who could only dream before. But now we want to help them make that dream real, right?
Yeah, there's a group of FilmConvert users in Nigeria, and so you probably know Nigeria has Nollywood. It's their kind of
Mm-hmm.
local, and they produce an enormous number of films every year for the local market. And it's stories that they kind of never. I think they're just starting to kind of penetrate the Western kind of market now, but it's an incredibly vibrant and storytelling and filmmaking community there. And there's a group of their users who discovered FilmConvert, and they use FilmConvert on all their projects. And it's fantastic to see these great kind of films you'd never see from a sensibility and just a filmmaking language that they use. They're just quite unlike anything else. But again, FilmConvert and cheap digital cameras are enabling them to tell their stories with a real professional level of production quality. They stand up to just anything you can see on Netflix or television, and I'm sure they're kind of going to keep on skilling and increasing their production values even more.
What about you and FilmConvert, Eliot? I mean, FilmConvert, Filmic Pro, sorry.
Yeah, well, I agree, because I'm one of those people who had the Hollywood dream. Maybe not so much anymore, because I like New Zealand and Tasmania just fine. But Apple have given creators a lot. But then it's been sort of the development community that have had to step in to give filmmakers what they really need. So Filmic Pro was the first to add a few of the foundational elements of a film look, like 24 frames per second, 180-degree shutter speeds. And then Apple comes in with the 4K and the high bit rates and the 10-bit video, which is fantastic. But when you're shooting on mobile, you will know all too well, Susie, that we still have major issues with noise and with digital sharpening. Like, you can tell that it's a smartphone because of those two things. They're the last two giveaways. And this is where FilmConvert Nitrate, for example, helps eliminate those last two things and deliver a picture where most people would have no idea whether it was shot on an iPhone or on a 16mm camera or an ARRI camera, because FilmConvert Nitrate gives you 6K film grain scans. So film grain, it hides the noise and it looks filmic. And in their plugins, you can add some softening to the image, so you can get rid of that harsh digital sharpening that even iPhones still suffer from, as do many Android devices. So I really see like Apple and others are catching up. Samsung and Sony especially are offering really compelling tools for creators, but it is third parties like FilmConvert that take it to the next level and really erase any boundary between film and mobile shooting.
Well, you guys, we're just about ready to reach about an hour. Not that we're limited or anything like that, but I'm trying to think of our listeners and how excited they must be listening to this. It's inspiring. It's inspiring because you see on the horizon with people like you guys working so hard with your companies to help realize the dream for the storytellers out there, to make the ultimate stories by creating them through film and filmmaking, and deliver that so that people can be moved by their stories, feel things, emotions, and get to really step into somebody else's shoes and see the world in from different perspectives. I mean, films can change the world. Stories can. And, we were just talking about Apple, and I was thinking back about how they enabled writers to publish their own books, musicians to publish their own music through iTunes. And they've always been on that level, trying to realize dreams. And for listeners, if you're listening to this and you're feeling a little bit inspired and motivated, you got that little tickle inside of you that says, you know what, I've got a story that I think I want to make a film with. I mean, you just have to get in touch with your phone and go to the App Store or wherever you got to go, but go and check out Filmic Pro and FilmConvert and make those things happen, because now you've got everything comes in threes, right, guys?
Yep, that's right. It's the storytelling key.
Yeah. So you've got the camera, you've got the story, and now you have FilmConvert for post-production and Filmic Pro for your production to shoot it. And Luma Touch, or even if you have to get on iMovie, but start creating things, because the more that that's how you gain experience. The more you use something, the more you experience that you have, the more you feel like you're becoming an expert. If you think about those two words, expert and experience go together hand in hand, and now you've got a very sensible way of testing and pretending, if you must. Right, guys?
Yeah, that's right. And it's like Robert Rodriguez says, everyone's got at least 100 bad films in them. Get those out of the way. And smartphone lets you get them out of the way a lot quicker.
Awesome. All right, now listen. One last thing from each one of you. I want you to inspire our listeners to get out there and shoot something beyond what I just said. So I'll start with John. John, go for it.
I just want to say to every filmmaker out there, if you've had an idea for a story, then now is the time. Don't wait. Don't kind of sit around worrying about, it might not look great, or it won't live up to what I think it is. The tools are available now to achieve those visions that you have in your head. So get out there and do it, and share it with the world, because we want to see it. We really want to empower you to tell your story.
You're next, Eliot.
Thank you. I would just say that there's a real hunger for unique stories and fresh perspectives now. Hollywood, at least for me, isn't as attractive as it once was. We get the same sort of stories there, the same blockbusters, the same Marvel and DC comic book films. But with a mobile phone and the tools that are available to you, there's no excuses not to make something, because it looks incredible, and you can start to experiment with new storytelling forms that have possibly not existed up until now. So it is an incredible time to be a filmmaker, and there's no technical limitations or budgetary things getting in your way, stopping you from shooting. So just like Susie said, pick up that phone, think up a unique story, go and shoot it, see how it turns out, and then make improvements for the next one and keep going until you have incredible films.
Did we leave anything out that you can think of? Because I know I didn't ask enough questions. I never can. Did we leave anything out from either of you you'd like to point out?
I'm all good. I think we've covered a lot.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, we've been thorough.
I think so.
Well, awesome. All right, well, listeners, we'll see you on the next podcast. And meanwhile, make sure that you follow FilmConvert at FilmConvert, and also Filmic Pro at Filmic Pro. And follow the links below. Don't forget, we're also sharing the video link so you can learn about the process between these two. Congratulations on your partnership to benefit filmmakers like our listeners.
Excellent.